You are successful. Of course you are. You're strong, you're resilient, and you're perseverant. You might feel afraid sometimes, but you don't let it hold you back. You face fear head on, and you do things that you don't want to do. You're disciplined. You get things done because you've always had to get things done. The problem is that we develop this incredible strength. We develop this perseverance, this resilience, because we have faced adversity. And while we can thank adversity for making us who we are today, that adversity likely was painful. And if that pain was never dealt with, it will come back later in life, and it will hold us back from being the biggest and best and kindest and most compassionate version of ourselves. I am Matt Gerlach, and welcome to Matters of the Mind, Rise to Your Worth. I work with super successful entrepreneurs and executives who feel anxious from time to time, and it's holding them back from driving their lives and their business to the most fullest version that they can possibly be. I help you create the maximum profit, the maximum freedom, and the maximum impact in your life and your business. Adversity. We all face it in life. Some of us succumb to it. Others of us use it as our strength and go on to change the world. It's incredible how much strength and resilience we can gain from adverse situations. But at the same time, if that's left unhealed, unprocessed, it eventually comes back, creating problems for us later in life. This is my story. My childhood was pretty difficult. I was abandoned by my group of friends at school when I was in 5th grade, and I didn't have any friends for about 4 years after that. I don't think I really had any friends before that either. So that means that for the first 15 years of my life, I had about a year and a half where I actually had companionship. The rest of the time, I was just walking around school, during lunch, during recess, alone. I thought something was wrong with me, and I put all of my energy into trying to hide that. At home, there was a lot of stress, a lot of overwhelm. My parents had their own difficult childhoods that kept them from realizing what was going on with me. There was a lot of chaos in the house. When I look back at my childhood, there was far more pain than there was pleasure. I don't really think it's even fair to say I had much of a childhood. I spent a lot of time doing chores and just doing grown-up things because I couldn't connect with kids. I didn't really know how to experience joy. I never found hobbies. I never found interests. My parents had me in sports, and I hate sports. I was not good at them at all. And that kind of made me feel like there was something wrong with me and I wasn't really a normal kid. So it wasn't until much later in life, well into my 30s, that I would say I actually even found hobbies and interests and things that brought me joy. So around 15, I got a job at an ice cream store. Then I got a second job next door in the mall at a hair salon. And when I started college, I found a job at a hospital. I became a heart monitor technician. Again, it was a super serious job. I was always very mature for my age. And I worked these like 16-hour shifts on Fridays and Saturday nights. My weekends were spent working. Sometimes I'd even be able to work a 24-hour shift rather than having to drive back from where I was going to college in Riverside to Los Angeles to the hospital that I was working at. During college, my weekends were predominantly spent working, and my weekdays I went to school, and when I wasn't, I was partying, drinking, out having fun with friends, but I wasn't ever present. I don't remember ever just like sitting by myself and being with myself. I remember being hungover on the couch and ordering pizza. I remember watching a lot of Sex and the City, but I don't remember ever just feeling my feelings. I was afraid to feel my feelings. And after college, I moved to San Diego. I had a lot of friends down there. Kind of the same thing. I had a full-time job, and to help pay for my college loans, I got a hospital job there on the weekends. So I would work, I think, about 2 weekends a month, and same thing. I was busy all the time, and when I wasn't working, I was out with friends drinking. I did find exercise at that point in my life. My friends started taking me on hikes, and I did my first half marathon. So I guess I could say that when I moved to San Diego at 22, that was the start of me moving my body for the first time. It was the start start of me actually doing, I guess that was the first time I remember doing something that I really enjoyed other than just partying with friends. Growing up playing sports, I always thought I was so unathletic. And now at 41 years old, I am one of the most athletic people I know, but I just don't play competitive sports because I still hate competitive sports. But after San Diego, I moved back to LA, and same thing, I was going for hikes, but I was working all the time and never really enjoyed my life. I never really dealt with what had happened during childhood, and I just carried it through until adulthood. I moved to New York, and that was the first time in my life that I remember getting off the plane and feeling like, oh my God, this is like the first time in my life that I can live my life for myself. I was 27 years old, and I don't remember a single moment before that where I didn't feel like I needed to hide myself, like what I was doing, what I was feeling was wrong. I don't remember really ever being authentic. I don't remember ever experiencing like real true joy until when I moved to New York and finally could start living my life for myself. Being gay, I was very excited to move to New York. I knew that was probably the safest place in America for a gay man, especially a 27-year-old gay man to be. I was in very good company. There was a lot of gay people there, and I really got to find myself. And for the first time, I got to really see that professionally, I was a star performer. Before that, even though I had this incredibly adult, super serious, hard job at the hospital, I never saw myself as remarkable. I never saw myself as a high achiever. I was just too focused on survival, I suppose. I had a professional job after college. I sold metal. It was also a very hard job. Looking back, it was actually really the hardest job I have had. But I didn't see that as remarkable either. It didn't pay all that much money. So maybe that's why. But when I moved to New York, I left metal sales. That was the first really big risk I took in life. It was the first time I really believed in myself enough to take that risk. I had never done something like that. I had probably $20,000 in my savings account at that point. So it wasn't nothing, but it wasn't like I could live for a year or even like probably 3 months off of, maybe 3 months, but I couldn't live for a very long time off of that. That's for sure. And I believed in myself. I found a job in baby product sales, and literally overnight, my pay doubled. In New York, this was a startup company that rewarded people for hard work, for rewarding people for results, not just hard work. But I started as kind of a junior salesperson, and after like 3 or 4 days, they were like, "This is ridiculous. You are clearly talented enough to be a sales manager." So I got promoted really quickly, and I started making more money than I could spend, which was really the first time in my life that I felt rewarded for who I was, for my talents. And it was really the first time that I was able to stop focusing on survival. I was able to go out with friends after work for drinks, start eating fancy restaurants. I learned that I really appreciated nice fine dining, not even fine dining, but just adventurous dining, just more than Applebee's type dining. And I really had extra money to like not worry so much. I got to start going to yoga. That's when I started going to yoga. I was going twice a day even during those first couple of years living in New York. And I really got to find myself and learn who I was, learn what I enjoyed. And as time went on, I still never faced anything that had happened in childhood. I was going to a therapist. I started going pretty quickly after I moved to New York. I did not journal at the time, so I don't really have like any records of what was going on. And I wish I could tell you what we talked about, but other than a few conversations, I can't remember a single thing. I've been in therapy for most of my adult life, quite honestly, and I probably can't tell you about the first 10 years of therapy other than just a couple of quick sentences I remember. So I was still not willing, not able to go back and be honest with myself about those childhood experiences and how they affected me. So work in New York kept getting better and better. I, went to a new company. I went to a new industry. I went into tech sales, went to a Silicon Valley software startup that had a branch in New York. And again, kind of miraculously changed my career. I was probably about 31 years old at that time, went to a brand new industry, did business development. I've never had a business development role like this, and my income shot to like $250,000. I was extremely well paid for that job because I achieved extremely miraculous results. And nothing was really that challenging for me. Like this wasn't like hard. And I think that's why I was able to keep skating by. I didn't really need to face the past in the same way that I needed to when I really challenged myself. That job at the Silicon Valley software startup ended. I was laid off. It wasn't a huge surprise. But at that point in my life, things were starting to get really good in my life. I had been with David for about 5 years. I was in this relationship, and I'd never been in anything like this before. And I really genuinely felt love like I never had felt before. He was the first person that ever loved me for me. I didn't feel like I needed to be somebody else to be loved by him, and I never experienced that. And I wouldn't have been able to even come close to understanding this at the time. It wasn't until several years later I realized that what I was going through at the time was that you can't love somebody else more than you love yourself. And I was loving him more than I loved myself. And that was creating a lot of problems in our relationship because I couldn't speak up for myself. I was making him guess what I needed. I was Mr. Passive Aggressive. That's what I'd grown up with, is seeing people not really stating their needs. They were just trying to get people to guess their needs, and that wasn't working. David doesn't have the same level of dysfunction that I had growing up, and that wasn't something that wasn't a game that he was willing to play. Then I started my business, and this was when everything really came tumbling down on me. And same things. I realized I couldn't advocate for myself. I had no self-worth at all. I was taking clients on. I think at the time I was charging something like $4,000 for each client. I had 5 clients, and it was just because I wanted to make that kind of money. But the level of service that I was providing wasn't a $4,000 service. It wasn't the type of service that I could have 5 clients with. And I also am driven by excellence, and I wasn't able to compromise on the deliverables. I was just doing it, and I wasn't able to set boundaries. I was afraid of people being mad at me, and I was afraid of like customers as I was trying to sell these baby products. I was afraid of not being perfect for those customers. I was afraid of everybody coming down and being mad at me. And then I realized there was something wrong. I didn't know at the time. I chased the next couple of years thinking that it must be physical problems. I can't believe this is true, but like I didn't think emotional health problems were real. I didn't think emotional health mattered. Growing up, all around me, there was emotional health challenges. Everybody was suffering, but no one had acknowledged it. And of course, I didn't think that this was real. I started to get help. I doubled down on therapy, and got really deeply immersed into yoga. I started working with coaches, started talking with people about what was going on. And it took a couple of years that I finally realized that what was going on was because of childhood. Once I finally realized that this was because of childhood, things started unfolding pretty quickly. I was able to remember a lot of what happened at home, but I still had shame for a lot. I started talking to my therapist. I started writing my book at the time, which was just like this writing project was one of the biggest healing modalities for me because I really rewrote my past. I, for the first time, acknowledged what I was remembering, and just things were pouring out of me. And I still had shame though. It took me probably about 2 years into the writing project where I finally admitted to my writing coach about the friends that had abandoned me. I was shameful about that. I knew they left me. I knew they abandoned me because they were realizing I was gay. No hard feelings towards them. I mean, this is kids. They were in 5th grade, and I know that that's how it goes. But I had been holding on to that shame my whole life. It was like really, I was 38 years old when I finally, for the first time, admitted that that had happened, because still, I thought that I had done that. I thought that there was something fundamentally flawed inside me that I couldn't reveal to other people. I couldn't let my friends, my writing coach, even my therapist, I couldn't let any of them know this because I was still worried that that they could abandon me. So I had kept this all buried. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't clear. I wasn't aware that I was doing this. But it wasn't until I was about 33 years old that the cracks started to show. That trauma that had happened in childhood, the adversity that I'd experienced, the obstacles I'd had to overcome, the self-hatred, the lack of self-worth, the lack of confidence, the lack of boundary setting, the lack of self-care, the lack of forgiveness, the lack of being able to give myself compassion, the high degree of standards of excellence I had expected of myself had turned into perfectionism, and I couldn't handle it anymore. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today, personally or professionally, if I hadn't gone back and gotten help with this all. The journey didn't have to be this long. That's really what's made me want to be a coach and really want to help people who are suffering with this, because I know it didn't have to be this hard. It didn't have to be this long. And when I work with people today, I'm able to help them because I can see what's going on. I know that this anxiety that they're having, I see that this worrying, this holding themselves to such a high degree of perfectionism, it's because of what happened in childhood. It's because of the trauma that we've had. It's because we haven't forgiven ourselves, because we still think something is wrong with us. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with anybody. What I had to learn was that my parents did their best. These kids at school that abandoned me weren't bad. This is just life. And there are boundaries we have to make in life. We do need to get ourselves out of harmful situations. But what I'm talking about is acknowledging this, acknowledging our feelings, acknowledging the past. We don't have to point and blame at somebody. For me, deep down, I was afraid to admit that this happened during my childhood because I didn't want my parents to feel bad about what had happened. I didn't want to point the finger at them. I didn't want to deal with their admonishment for what was true about my childhood. So much freedom happened from me just admitting that this was my story. This was what happened to me. The results from doing this are remarkable. I say this, I don't really feel anxiety anymore. I guess it happens a little bit from time to time, but I know how to handle it. I know I'm gonna make my way through. I worry a little bit here or there, but I'm able to reframe that worrying and do something about it. I'm not just spinning. It was like my mind and my body were at war. There was a self-betrayal inside me. If I couldn't admit that the feelings I was having were valid, how was I going to be able to set boundaries at work? How was I going to be able to advocate for myself, for my company, for my clients? I couldn't, because I didn't trust myself. I thought that inside me, it was just like a chemical reaction that was happening that wasn't supposed to be happening. Anxiety, in its most simple definition, as I like to say, it's our internal needs not matching our external environment. And once we start matching the two of those, we start creating boundaries, we start acknowledging the reality of things, we start honoring our stories, everything changes. When we address the past, when we admit what happened to us, when we admit what had hurt us in the past, we open the door for healing. We open the door for personal growth. I like to say that I do feel healed, but I'm on a growth journey now. I think some of us are afraid of healing, but I think more of us don't know that we need healing. We don't know that what happened to us is hindering us later in life. If any of this is resonating, if any of this is making sense, if any of this is perking your ears up, I'm here for you. I encourage you to reach out and schedule a call. I coach super successful people just like you and help them get through this anxiety, through this worrying, so they can lead their business to extreme success. I work with you on the business part as well. I have 15 years of entrepreneurial experience. I've helped dozens of companies get to 7, 8, and 9 digits in revenue. I am here to help you learn what I spent years having to learn. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I just want to let you know that it is your story. You need to honor your story, and by honoring your story, there is extreme freedom that comes from that. Your body and your mind, your soul are no longer in turmoil. Your life is your story, and you have my permission to honor your memories, not what somebody else tells you about their memories of your life. If you found value in this episode, please leave me a review. It helps me so much, and I would be so grateful if you could share this with any of your friends or family members who could benefit. Just remember, I am here for you and I'm only a phone call away. I would love to talk to you and see if I can help you. Thank you so much for joining.